I am generally not one to build vintage kits or old toolings of kits. I personally prefer the joy of a new tooled kit that doesn't fight you every step of the way, or maybe a more obscure aircraft. But sometimes I have to go to an older kit out of necessity or just intrigue, and this is one such example. There is already an unboxing video for this kit, so just click the link above if you haven't seen that, but for now, let's crack it open and see how good this old kit is by modern standards. According to Scalemates, the tooling date for this kit was 1988. I have counted 46 parts, but take that with a pinch of drunkenness. It only has one decal scheme, and the modern release under PM models is £6.99, so I put that as an approximate RRP. I actually paid £7 for this, which is the 1988 release. I am aware that's a little bit high for an old kit. However, I wanted to see what it was like in its original form, rather than the re-released one. As is usual with my build analysis videos, this will not be me describing every single step of the way, so if there is anything that you see that you want me to clarify, just drop a timestamp or a comment down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. All of the parts were removed using the sprue cutters as usual, tidied up with a knife and a file, and if necessary, some sandpaper for that final finish. And construction is more or less in line with the instructions. I do find that older kits have, shall we say, less effective instructions. They're just exploded diagrams. It just shows you, here are some parts, chuck them together, put a bit of glue on, you'll be fine. And to be fair, that is true. It doesn't hold your hand through it in the way that perhaps a modern Airfix or Revell set of instructions would, but hey, it gets the job done. Either way, interior is obviously the place to start with a kit like this, and it is a seat, a bulkhead, and it's glued to the side of the fuselage, and there is an instrument panel as well. Not expecting much for a kit of this age, although, that said, something from, for example, Tamiya of this age, or even some of the Airfix stuff from this age, had more inside than this, but hey, whatever. My good old reliable Hataka brush paints came out for the interior. It's just the standard interior grey-green, which is, I think they call it BO25, but it's meant for British aircraft to be precise, of the Second World War era. I know this falls a little bit outside of that, but, well, you've seen the detail in the inside. It will do. I don't actually know what colour it was supposed to be for a Sea Fury of this age, but either way, it is now interior grey-green, so if you don't like it, tough. With nothing else to do on the inside, the fuselage could then be glued together using the usual glue that I used, the Revell contactor. The wing top and bottoms can then go together. Like with the Hawker Tempest with the Bristol Centaurus engine, this has a radiator in the wing, so I just painted that black. There's no other detail in there at all, so you can see straight into the wing, but by painting it black, not enough light gets in for that to be a problem. And up to this point, there has been no sign of any flash or mould misalignment or anything on this tooling, so it almost felt like a new kit, just, a pretty rubbish one. But anyway, the fuselage and wings can then be joined together, and I ran some contactor down the wing roots just to make sure everything was nice and tight. As you can see here, I'm also doing it down the bottom. The elastic bands are there to keep the pressure on the sort of the wing to the top of the fuselage. This is something I'll do for most aircraft that have the top wing to the bottom wing and then the whole assembly to the fuselage underneath, rather than the wings joining the side of the fuselage. It's just, I find it's the best way of getting the contact where I need. Anyway, horizontal stabilisers were then put on, and the engine, which comprises of the cowling, as you see here, with a pin through it, and I've already assembled the rest, which is the hub and propeller blades, and that goes on, and in theory, everything should spin and be fine. I would rather not put the whole propeller assembly on this early. Again, quite common for a kit of this age. I would much rather the newer Airfix way of doing it, where you can paint it, for example, airbrush it, without the propeller blades getting in the way. However, it works, so I can't complain too much. But once it was more or less dry and spinning free, the cowling assembly can then go on the fuselage, ready for the next step, which is priming. You see I've already put blue tack and a stick so that I could spin my Sea Fury around on a stick and play with it. No, so that I can hold it whilst I prime it. And in this case, the entire thing was primed in white, because the lightest colour of this aircraft will be white for the, I was going to say invasion stripes, but they're not, they're identification markings. And this is where I need to hold my hands up and talk about a mistake that I made. So As you can see, the entire kit is primed in white, and I'm masking out the rough area of the stripes. Now, these are white, black, white, black, white, and I'm using Tamiya 6mm tape, which roughly equates to 18 inches on the real thing. Now, that is perfect for a Second World War set of D-Day stripes, which were 18 inches or thereabouts on the wings and fuselage. However, it's too wide for the later Korean War, which were actually 12 inches and not 18. Which in 72nd is about 4mm. Now, I don't have any 4mm tape. I don't think you can get any 4mm tape, but I went into autopilot having made plenty of D-Day stripes this way. It's simple. You just get 5 strips of tape. Boom. That's it. That's all you need. You just take off the ones that you need for the colours that you need. Fine. Rather than what I should have done, which is essentially cut down the tape to be 4mm. Now, as we're going to see, this did ultimately work out in my favour. I think it is wrong, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that it is wrong, and I only acknowledged it was wrong when it was too late or more too time-consuming to go back and do it again. And I'll mention why I think this actually worked out in my favour at the suitable time later on in the video. And actually, I've just realised that most of what I've just said is bollocks, because I didn't actually do 5 rows of tape. That would have made it too big. These are actually 14-inch stripes. As you see here, I'm measuring using the little ruler as to where I need it to be, which is 24mm? Yeah, 24mm. So it's actually wrong anyway. I don't know what I was doing. At this point, I was on autopilot, and I was measuring the what I thought was the right size when obviously it wasn't the right size. Either way, this took a lot of time, lots of tape. Now, there is a big cutout where the registration goes, so I've had to very carefully measure and peel away the tape where this registration decal will go, as you'll see later. This was done by measuring the height of the decal on the sheet rather than anything else. So rather than using any images or anything from the limited instructions, this was very much a, how big is the decal going to be? That big, cool. Cut that out. It does mean it doesn't quite look right, which again we will cover later, because that's essentially the point as to why the stripes look all right in my opinion. On to airbrushing then, and we have this set from Vallejo, the Fleet Air Arm set from the Second World War. Yes, again, I know this aircraft is slightly outside of the Second World War, being from the Korean War, however the colours were essentially the same, and the base colour is Sky Type S in both circumstances. These paints are from their Model Air range, and as such were poured straight into the airbrush with no thinning required. Of course, if you prefer, you can add a bit of Vallejo thinner in there as well to just make it a little bit more to your preference, if that is your thing. For me, personally, I wasn't interested in doing anything fancy. I just wanted to, well, paint it Sky Type S. I have experimented since then with more detailed paint finishes rather than just coverage, but this is probably the last kit I did where I was just very much a put the paint on and we'll deal with it later. Also, I have plans to buy the Trumpeter 172nd Sea Fury, which will hopefully warrant a bit of extra detail. And once that had fully dried, the dark sea grey could be sprayed on the top. This was all masked off. Masking is my least favourite thing to do with a model, and this is the main reason why for years I never even bothered buying an airbrush, because I was worried it was going to be tons and tons of masking. I think it came out okay, but yeah, it's not for everybody, is it? Just sitting there, just masking tape. Oh, no, tiny bit out of line, more masking tape. Oh, that's a tiny bit out of line as well. Yeah, it was quite tedious, but hey, the end result, I think, did make it worth it, and I hope you agree. But yes, the dark sea grey over the sky. This is just standard colours. Of course, standard colours for Fleet Air Arm in this time period. Of course, they do need a gloss finish, and we will get round to that towards the end. These are just matte paints, but that's really the only difference I can think of. The tape can then be removed to reveal the white slabs we have left, which will form the basis of our our identification stripes. In much the same way as the wing registration has a big gap with stripes painted around it, the fuselage is much the same, and we need to address that as well. Now, from the research that I've done, the ad hoc nature of painting these stripes on meant that there was a lot of variation. So some aircraft would have the registration just painted around, others would have it painted over, and then the new registration painted on top of the stripes, so black on white, white on black, for example. Now this aircraft does not represent one from the Korean War directly, it replicates one from 1989, which may or may not have been 100% accurate for the one it was replicating. Either way, I used the model air colour as just a brush paint and painted a sky panel over where the registration would be, making sure to measure the decal to get the size right. The identification stripes were then painted on with a brush over the white primer. You can, of course, airbrush this if you prefer. I quite like to give any markings quite a rustic look relative to the rest of the plane. So the black and the white are both brush painted over. They're still masked, so they're still straight. However, it just gives a slightly different texture, and to my eyes, I think suits the more ad hoc approach of painting stripes over an existing aircraft. Again, there are different ways of doing this, and I'm hoping to cover that in a future video, but this is my preferred way. I also like to work methodically one stripe at a time, rather than, in this case, cutting the tape to be much thinner. It hurts my head to have to really finely cut masking tape like that. I'm always open to ideas though, so if anyone has any better suggestions, then pop them in the comments. So next we're mixing Hataka Lemon Yellow and the American Interior Green. So this is a slightly different shade of interior green that we've used before, but mixing it by eye to replicate Hawker Yellow. So this is the colour painted on wheel wells of aircraft of this period from this factory. So the interior of the legs and wheel wells were supposedly this sort of shade. This was done with photo referencing. The instructions do not mention what colour to paint any of this stuff, so a lot of this is based on extra research. There's also almost no discernible detail on the legs. It's almost impossible to know which way round they are, to be honest. Onto the decals, and as you can see, these are yellowed. Now, from the unboxing video, I did have suggestions to leave them on a window. I did. I actually clipped them to the blinds on the window that gets the most sunlight, but it is winter here in the UK at time of building this kit. In fact, this was made mostly December and early January, and yes, not exactly known for high UV content sunshine, not exactly basking in the glory, and after about, I think, 6 weeks being clipped on there wasn't much change, and I thought, sod it, that will do. Now, for the finish, as I mentioned, this was a gloss finish in real life. However, in model form, scale effect and other stuff means that gloss is a little bit overwhelming. So I mixed gloss, satin with a bit of airbrush thinner and sprayed that over the entire aircraft before moving back to the undercarriage legs. Now you see the way that they're moulded here with the feed basically obscuring a lot of the leg. On one side it's fine, on the other side it's not. So in this case, cutting it from the inside and then sanding the bugger down was necessary. Yeah, not ideal, but that's actually the only problem that I came across with this kit. Everything else I could work with. That was just very frustrating. Citadel's contrast paint was then used for the basically the engine. So this was actually painted black beforehand, but because, well, I had to spray around there, it ended up bleeding into the radiator area. The intake area. So that was required just for a little bit of detail, and also used for the control surfaces. Now, yes, an old kit like this is an ideal candidate for weathering, but I'm not a massive fan, to be honest. I prefer aircraft to look either slightly used or factory fresh, depending on the particular kit, and with this one I was just happy to build the plane. Finally then, somebody may have noticed that I did not fit the landing lights that are way at the beginning, one of the early steps. Well, that's because I couldn't be bothered, and I intended to replace them with Clearfix, just blobbed on with a paperclip. And that brings this one to a close. So all that remains then is to have a look at the end result. So how do I feel about this one? Well, as I've already said, this is a notably older tooling than I would usually make. I did not want to put in too much effort. It was kind of one of those mojo builds, as you may have heard it referred to, or palette cleanser, as I like to think of it. I always like to have an easy kit on the go, just to help motivate me, rather than keep on struggling with things that are really complicated. It's just the way that I work best. This definitely captures the shape of the Sea Fury, and it is not a bad kit overall. I do, however, really want a decent tooled Sea Fury. This only makes it worse. I bought this because I saw it. Well, I was partly inspired by Matt from Model Minutes, who did one as a Mojo build on their channel, probably well over a year ago now. And I saw this in the shops and thought, oh yeah, I should do that because I really like the Sea Fury, and this will help alleviate the desire to go and spend too much money on the Trumpeter one. And no, it didn't work at all. Now I just want a better Sea Fury, but hey, yes, not too bad. The obvious problems with it are the stripes are the wrong size, as I mentioned, but the reason why I think that works is because all of the decals are too big. The registrations, where it says 1, 2, 3 on the fuselage, is too big. Now, I of course measured the height and measured the decal before painting the sky section, and it looks right, but it only looks right because the stripes are actually bigger. And if the stripes were the normal size, then the number would bleed over. So, yeah, bit of an inconvenience, and that is true of the underneath of the plane as well, where again the stripes are just a little bit too big, but because the registration is too big, everything kind of looks in proportion. So one of those, yes, it's wrong, but because it looks right, you don't necessarily notice that it's wrong moments. Will this stand up against a Trumpeter one? No, probably not. Did I have fun building it? Absolutely yes. I suppose my only real recommendation for this kit is do not set your expectations unrealistically. This is just going to be a quick thing you can throw together in a weekend, just in between other projects. To really make this kit shine, I feel that you would need some sort of interior detail or some reason why you don't have any. And you should really get some replacement decals as well, or of course just buy the PM models one, but then the tooling has aged a bit and maybe won't fit together as well, and really that then just points towards, why don't you just buy a better Sea Fury? Why don't you buy the Trumpeter one? And bearing in mind, I have not made the Trumpeter one. I'm assuming that it is better, and I would advise staying tuned to the channel because one day, maybe in the future, I will feature that on the channel as well. I don't have it yet, and there's a lot of things already lined up, but hey, you never know, I may just get a moment of inspiration. Anyway, let me know what you think of the end result. Do you think I did a good job? Do you think it looks like garbage? Honestly, it's fine. I don't particularly like the exhaust stains that I did. I don't think they look particularly realistic. I didn't mention putting them on either, probably out of shame, but I did, just a quick bit of weathering powder. And that brings this to a close. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you'll be back for another video. If you don't already subscribe, then please consider doing so, as it helps the channel out massively. Like and share would also be very beneficial. Or for extra commitment, you could even be a channel member. For a very small sum, you can get behind the scenes action of mostly me building things and sharing those images. There will be some members polls when there's a few more members, although of course at the moment there are some public polls as well. Either way, I'm very much appreciative to my channel members and would love to see more people join them if you would like. Once again, thanks for watching, stay safe, and I will see you again another time.